everyone, and welcome to Talking XP. I'm Johnny, and I have Ryan with me today, and also Steve Orr, or better known as @Agent Jaspor on Twitter. We played his one shot on our Twitch. This was on March 31st. Yeah, on March 31st on our Twitch, Talking_XP. Amongst Thou. It was a lot of fun. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's been a busy day for a Monday, but happy to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to the discussion here.
Yeah, me too. Go ahead and after this interview, go ahead and check out our Twitch just to see the Amongst Thou playthrough that we had. We will have it done on YouTube as well, so go ahead and check out our YouTube page. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, but let's just go ahead and get into it. You said that you watched the stream. What did you think?
Oh, it was awesome. You guys did a better job running it than I did. So I really enjoyed it. It was cool. There were a couple cool twists. The whole first round with like the doppelganger, where you actually switch was interesting. Although my first thought was, what happens when they find a dead body of the person that's now impersonating the dead body? And that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
That was an interesting situation.
So that was good. And then the second one, you had the whole charm person thing going. I thought that was, I enjoyed watching them. They were fun. They were fun to watch. Yeah. I always get a kick out of watching people like, run stuff that I've written. I was talking about a couple of my friends that I was trying to get watch it too, and I was like, it's just weird. It's like kind of surreal seeing people like running stuff that you wrote and like having fun. So I mean, I appreciate you guys playing, and I look like you guys are having fun. And it was a lot of fun. I was like, I could learn a thing or two because you guys, like I said, you guys did a better job running it than I did, I think. Like I like the way that you guys were doing the whole, take your headphones off thing.
Right.
See, when I ran it, I was doing like, let's go to another Discord channel, right? So I'll go to another Discord channel and send in this person. And I was basically staying there for like a good amount of the time and just telling the other person to go back to the main room and send in whoever's turn was next.
Right.
Well, that led to the main group whose turn it wasn't, like hanging out and
talking about what they're doing.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, not so much even about the game, but just like bullshitting. I felt like, I was a little too hands off. So anyway, if and when I run this again, I'm going to use your technique. So thank you for showing me a better method.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, then that kind of goes into, what you kind of saw was different. Is there anything that you would have changed is my next question.
So from how you guys ran it,
right.
I don't think so. I think you did a pretty good job. I mean, it was entertaining to watch. And like, it was pretty much like how it should go. It seemed that everybody was engaged, that there was, that sense of, oh no, who is it? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
I also liked that when there was the doppelganger thing going on, and forgive me, I'm not going to remember whose name it was, but the player playing the character of the doppelganger started speaking for them, even though it wasn't really their character, which I thought was awesome.
Right. So cool.
So glad that he did that. Yeah. Because I was planning to be silent that entire time because there was no way for me to get out of that without, getting,
right.
Yeah,
because I know that I was, as the DM, I was like, okay, I know who the imposter is, and I don't want to like just be like, oh, it's a doppelganger. That's him, and Ryan is the one. But I don't want to do that, and I don't want to talk for them. So yeah, I was very glad that Zach, who was Detective Sus, he jumped in there and started talking. So that was pretty funny.
That was awesome.
It definitely brought up some good points of like, if that were to happen, what would you do from there? But yeah.
So the one thing that did catch my attention, and I mean, I have no problem with it, but I found it kind of amusing. Obviously we ripped off Among Us, and one of the things I tried to do was change some of the keywords. So I didn't really call it imposter. I called it like deceiver.
Right.
But I mean, anybody who's familiar with the game knows what that means.
Of course. Yeah. Do you have any other helpful tips that you might not have seen us do that you might want to share with other people?
I mean, No, I mean, I should have thought about this a little bit more, but you guys did such a good job that I didn't really think of anything that like stood out. Like, well, so there've been times, I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. There's been times when I've watched people play like other adventures that I've written, and then either they left something out or they did something like and made me cringe a little bit, and I was like, oh man, like you left out an important part that was really fucking cool. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to curse or not.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. Don't worry.
But I didn't feel that at all. I didn't have any of those cringe moments.
Cool.
I enjoyed it. So there wasn't really anything I could think of that, I would suggest. One thing that we did do as well. So we obviously we play tested it. I only play tested it once, and it was with a bunch of my friends. Like I said, they were a little distracted. And we tend to drink pretty heavily on Friday nights where we play, so that factors.
I feel you. Yeah.
So we play tested it once. I published it, and then there were a couple comments from a couple users that were like poked holes in it, and they were like, "What about this situation? What about that situation?"
I saw that. Yeah.
So we addressed those. I was like, these are all good points. And guess what? Here's version 1.1.
Exactly. Yeah. Right? I saw that you updated it after a few comments. So
things like that are super helpful. I mean, the guy wasn't a jerk about it. He was just kind of like, this sounds awesome. I have some questions. I was like, cool. Let me see if I can address those.
Yeah. I think if you come at it like that, where it's just like, hey, this is really cool. I just have this one question. Like, what do we do here? That's like when you're like, okay, yeah, no, and let me work on that. When there's like this guy like, this is a 1-star, the blah 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 blah, all the things that are wrong with it. It's like, dude, come on, like.
Yeah. I'm with you there. Yeah. It's not constructive to do that.
Right.
This was great. It was constructive criticism that I was like, you're absolutely right. It was more than one question. It was about 10 bullet points, but they were all good points. I think maybe out of the 10, like 2 of them were like, we did that on purpose. But the other 8 or so, I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Let me fix that.
Yeah.
So the version that you played, had a playtest and then had like the kind of the 1.1 revisions based on some comments for some people that tried it.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of leads into, our next kind of part where we're just creating questions in general.
I want to hop on to something while we're still on to the Among Us now, or at least relatively onto that topic. Have you played a lot of Among Us then? In the creation of this, or I haven't
played a whole lot of it, which again I shouldn't say it, but I don't care. I'll be honest. All right, so it's kind of like so Kai, the artist, OMG Kai, who did the art, is a friend of mine, awesome artist. She's drawn some stuff on some of the other books I've done. I think the one there where she did really awesome stuff was How the Lich Stole Christmas. She did like the kobolds and Christmas hats that everybody loved, right? So I'm always like, you gotta draw some stuff for me. You gotta draw some stuff for me, D&D. Like, she's into it, but we need kind of like the right idea and stuff. So she kind of said, what if we did like an Among Us like D&D thing? And I'm like, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I basically said, you know what, if you draw the art, I'll come up with the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
Right? And I watched a few videos and my kids play. So I was asking my kids questions and they were like, why don't you just play with us? I'm like, all right, I'll play a few rounds. So I played, I don't know, a dozen or so rounds.
I feel like that's all you need.
Wasn't the imposter once. Not a single time was I the imposter. But I got a good feel for the different tasks.
Right. Yeah.
And being a ghost, which was a weird thing to try to work into D&D.
Yeah, that was a challenge. That was a challenge for sure.
How do you make a player still participate while they're technically dead and they're not supposed to talk and influence the vote? So to answer your question, no, I didn't play a ton, but I did play about a dozen or so, games as research. But you're right, it's pretty straightforward.
I think like what Johnny's saying, I think that's definitely more than enough for something like this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's enough. It's the same game. You just have different imposters. That's pretty much it. I mean, right. there's a bunch of different tasks, so you might not get through all of them, but right. I mean, it wasn't an issue with this because they're all completely different other than like the engine room, which that was a great part in the stream where Zach just like smacked the engine with a natural 20. It was just that was great.
That was pretty cool.
But yeah, I mean, like it didn't come off like you haven't played it very much anyways, because it seemed very true to the game, and yeah, it played very similar. So
good. I mean, I'm glad. And you know, so just before we if we move on to another topic, like I just want to give a shout out to Kai too, because like the art is awesome. Like, I know you guys said that, but I can't say like enough how like cool it is and how it like makes the product as a whole.
Oh yeah,
with the dude with the little hand coming out with the tentacle on the knife. I loved it. Like I was like, you draw it, I'll come up with mechanics. Like we'll make this work. But you gotta draw it.
My favorite part was the different like characters that you could play as. Like the ones with like, you know, the barbarian had the axe in its head. You know, the wizard had a wizard hat. The rogue had the 2 daggers, and then the cleric had the book and all that. It was really cool.
She did a great job with it.
It's awesome too that you mentioned that she did the art for the Lich Stole Christmas, because I know that's definitely one that we've talked about amongst ourselves about potentially doing come around perhaps December, perhaps.
Oh yeah, I would love that. If you guys, I mean, I'll send you guys a complimentary copy for sure. Like,
that'd be great.
It's been super popular, that one. I'm really proud of that. I mean, it's pretty popular for like just a seasonal book.
Right.
And again, I think part of it is the art. She did the kobolds with Christmas hats. She did like this angry Christmas tree, like Treon's character.
That's cool.
She didn't do the cover art. That was another artist called Frank Wade, which is also, I love the cover there too. It's like, it's perfect.
It's so good.
And I give a shout out to Gordon Meralpin did the layout. He did like the Dr. Seuss style text.
That's cool.
And one thing I think, so maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but if you want to talk about like design secrets for like making products and making them have wide appeal, like we made it scalable so that any level can play it, right? It's just basically the 4 levels, the 4 level tiers. And for each encounter, it's basically like, if you're tier 1, here's the version of the NPCs to use. If you're tier 1, here's the DC of this check. If you're tier 3, here's the DC. It's a little bit of extra work, but I think it's worth it, you know, because you don't pigeonhole yourself into this is just a level 3 or tier 1, you know. And there was a comment, one of the reviews, which was, I mean, we've got great reviews on that one. I love reading them because they're all super positive and they're all around Christmas. And then they're like, oh, we had to play this for my Christmas Christmas. But one of the reviews was, I played this with like some level 5s and they had such a great time that I played it with another group and they were level 17 and both were awesome experiences. That's and cool. Like, that's the kind of thing I'm like, all right, mission accomplished, right?
Right.
If a single person can run it for 2 different groups with that wide a level span between them.
Seriously, 5 and 15 is huge.
Yeah. So like I said, jumping ahead a little bit, but yes. So a little tangent there. Kai, amazing artist.
Oh yeah.
With Kai, when you listen to this, do more art, please, because everybody loves it and it makes the products better.
Seriously, everybody that's listening, my goodness, just check out Amongst Thou. The art in it is just perfect. I mean, even the cover art is just great. You have like the whole spread of the characters. It really just sets the tone for the entire one shot, if you will. Yeah, I guess. Okay, so then let's get back into that. You were saying, like, you know, setting up, you know, your adventures to put onto DM's Guild. How does that process look like for you?
So we haven't done a lot of adventures because, I mean, there's a few reasons, right? One is kind of like we've had other ideas that we've liked better, like, you know, the puzzles books, right? And once we did one puzzle book, it was a huge hit. It seemed natural to just do a volume 2 and a volume 3. Whether or not we're out of ideas or not kind of remains to be seen. So we haven't done a lot of adventures, but when we do the adventures, you know, it's kind of like, let's try to keep it concise, right? Let's try to keep it, you know, fast moving, not the kind of thing that is going to take, you know, maybe 2 sessions, but not like, it's not a campaign, right? We try to keep our products relatively bite size, which helps in a few ways, right? One is it doesn't have this gigantic growing scope that we never see the end of the tunnel, right? We never get to the end. It's just constantly going. We try to keep them relatively small and bite-sized so that we can actually finish them in a reasonable amount of time and get, you know, a few products out each quarter. That's kind of how we operate. So the adventures we're probably looking at somewhere between, you know, 4 and 6 encounters and maybe make one of them kind of optional. And you know, make not all of them combat encounters, right? So you throw in something like, you know, a social encounter. You know, we like puzzles, so I don't want to spoil the Christmas book too much, but there's a puzzle in there. There's an optional combat encounter, and then there's like, you know, the main final boss encounter. So, you know, I kind of keep this structure of somewhere between 4 and 6 encounters, sprinkling social and combat, maybe a little exploration, and you're probably like in pretty good shape, right? Like you keep the scope of it pretty, you know, narrow, and you'll get finished in a reasonable amount of time. And as long as you got like good flow to it and keep the pace moving, you know, people will typically enjoy it.
Right. And for everybody that doesn't know, the puzzles that he's talking about is the Puzzles, Predicaments, and Perplexities. There is a volume 1, 2, and 3. I love the alliteration of the Puzzles, Predicaments, and Perplexities. It's very good. There's a lot of puzzles in each of them. There's like 15 in each of them?
I think one of them might have a 12. It's like somewhere between 12 and 15.
Yeah.
Volume 2. Volume 2, we actually did print on demand. So you had to be a minimum number of pages. So I think that one's probably the biggest of the 3. And then we went back. We were like, we're not doing that again for volume 3. There's just a lot of hoops to jump through in order to get it print ready.
And I mean, each of them are just $5 too. So you can just add all of them to your campaigns wherever you want. So that's pretty cool. That was definitely one of the main highlights that I saw from the list of stuff that you worked with. And you were also saying we. So who is your...
Yes. So I have a co-author that's been working with me on most of these books, Bill Petrino. He's worked on the puzzles book with me. He's worked on, we have another alliteration on obstacles, obstructions, and...
Ordeals.
Thank you. Yep. The third O almost escaped me. So he's worked with me on a couple of those books. He wasn't involved in the Amongst Thou one. That was kind of like just me and Kai banging. We did that in like 3 weeks. We created that in like... when you get like a good idea and you kind of get the motivation, and it also helps when you only have one writer, you could bang it out. Some of the other ones take a little longer. I think the last book took about we just put out a book called Candlekeep Mysteries. That was with myself, with Bill, and now we've got a third friend of mine, DJ Brewer, who does some of the writing and thankfully does the layout, because that was my least favorite thing to do. So now he's kind of taken that burden on. So
that was going to be my other question. Is how do you guys do the layout and writing and all that stuff? Do you have any like programs that you use, or?
So I'll start with the writing. The writing is basically just like a Google Drive doc, really, right? And we start with basically like an outline and ideas, and I literally create like a table that's like, here's each section, here's each encounter or puzzle or appendix or whatever it may be. Here's who's assigned to it. And it's, basically the person who came up with the idea is the one assigned to it. It's not like, I'm doling out work. It's your idea, you're working on it. And then the status. And then we just, we put them in there, we write them. And, when they're all done, I basically do like an initial copy edit pass to make sure that there's no horrible typos or horrible grammar. And then we usually hire an outside editor. There's been a few different ones that we've worked with, so I would fail to be able to shout out all of them. So
yeah.
So that's what we do for the writing. I mean, it works pretty smoothly. It's when it gets hard is when we have a specific release date in mind and it's approaching, right? So for like the Candlekeep one, we wanted to release it the same day Candlekeep Mysteries came out. Yeah. So that's a hard date. The Wizards ain't missing that date. So if we want to hit that date, we need to be on the ball.
Of course. That makes sense.
The book we're working on now doesn't have a tie-in, so we're a little bit looser with the
gotcha
with that. But you also asked about the layout. So I was doing the layout myself using a tool called GM Binder. I don't know if you've heard of that. Yeah. It's all like HTML based. It's all web based. It's pretty easy to use. I'm a web developer, like my real job. So, the CSS and the HTML is pretty easy for me to manipulate. I'm very familiar with it. Dave has moved on to using more advanced like Adobe InDesign products and stuff that I don't want to go near. So
well, that's a whole other thing that you're gonna have to learn. I mean, if you already know HTML and there's already tools for it, I totally understand that.
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite way. I'm an Adobe boy, so trying to go into HTML is definitely a lot newer territory for me.
Yeah. So I mean, it's what you're familiar with. If you know the Adobe, then great. You know, I mean, it seems like it's more powerful. Like everybody that's used the Adobe, there's I've heard occasional complaints about it crashing randomly, but I've never heard anybody say you can't do that with Adobe, right? You can do anything.
Right. Yeah. Well, great. I mean, and talking more about your Candlekeep. Candlekeep Confidential is the title of that one.
Alliteration, you get a sense of the pattern here.
No, it's great. It's great. But not only do you have it with Candlekeep, you have it with Waterdeep Dragon Heist, you have Waterdeep The Plowing and Running, you have Treasures of the Deep, which is supposed to go with Ghosts of Saltmarsh, where you have like just magic items in general. You have Snow, Ice, Things Nasty and Nice, that's supposed to go with Rime of the Frost Maiden. Yeah. I mean, it looks like you have a lot that go with, official released adventures. Has that been successful for you? Is that like more successful than others? What's your experience with that?
It's been pretty successful, right? But I wouldn't necessarily say it's been more successful than others, right? The items that we've done we've done basically the tie-ins, and you just rattle off, if not all of them, most of them, and then the puzzles, right, which are a thing on their own. And then we did the obstructions, obstacles, obstructions, and ordeals. Now I got it at that time, which was kind of a spin-off on the puzzles book. When I first had an idea of the very first thing I wanted to write, I wanted to do like an American Ninja Warrior thing. That's what I wanted to do.
Gotcha.
But it kind of got put on the back burner. That's what the obstacles thing is kind of doing, right? But we learned a lot of stuff from doing the puzzles books in terms of how to scale the encounters, how to string them together, how to do skill checks, and build all these things in. So then that kind of I consider that kind of like a companion piece to that, and those have been super successful, right? Not to say that the tie-ins haven't been. They have been. I mean, I think. The magic items, the Treasures of the Deep is gold, right? So, and I think most of the other ones are in the silver to electrum range, which is pretty good. It's interesting because you definitely have that built-in audience, but there's also we're not the only ones that have that idea, right? When Candlekeep comes out and Icewind Dale, I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 books when Icewind Dale came out with the same stock art cover, So there's a little bit of a market saturation there.
Yeah.
And
I think that, I mean, personally, when I'm, trying to create my own homebrew world, I'm not really looking for adventures because I can make that up my own. Puzzles, my God. I mean, puzzles are always great. They're a great, I don't want to say time consumer for players, but they're a good time consumer. I mean, like if you're not prepped for the next encounter, throw a puzzle in front of them and then they'll take like an hour to do it and then you're good for the next week. But that's one thing that I struggle coming up with is puzzles and all of those kind of things, obstacles that my players can go up against, and that's where I tend to look online for rather than the adventures and things like that, because I tend to have like more personal quests rather than, I don't really run official stuff as much. I am running Curse of Strahd, but there's a wealth of, if we're talking about market saturation, my goodness, there is so much stuff for Curse of Strahd, but puzzles, those can go anywhere and you can use them at any time. It just, I feel like that might be another reason as to why they're so successful, is that people are looking specifically for those, Yeah,
100%. And it's funny because part of the inspiration was I joined. There's a Discord, a DM's Guild Discord, like community Discord, right? And I joined that and was on that for a little while. And I only had like 2 or 3 books out. I think I had done the Waterdeep book and then the Treasures of the Deep and maybe one other one. And this, like I said, the American Ninja Warrior thing was in the back of my mind, and also this puzzle thing was kind of in the back of my mind. And the thing that put me over the top was Ashley May and Isaac May, who are other creators, and they're moderators on that Discord, went on an interview similar to this, and the interviewer, who was it? I think it was Travis Legg who was interviewing them, and he asked them, what do you want to see more of on the DMs Guild? And Ashley said puzzles, and I said, that's it, I'm doing it.
Yep.
I was like, there's a demand, and I think we can do a decent job. And it's actually just past 10,000 sales. There's no medal for 10,000. The highest one is 5,000, but last month we passed 10,000, which is pretty cool.
Right on. Yeah. And I mean, like I said earlier, they're so cheap too. You get, 12 to 15 puzzles that you can put anywhere for $5. That's like super doable. And it's, and then you can reuse them for other parties that you have as well. So yeah, it's definitely a good deal. And then there's also, I mean, if anybody's interested, there's also, you have free samples for each of these different things. So like the obstacles, obstructions, and ordeals, you have the arrow, crossfire, and then the rope swing, which come for free. You can just take a look at that, and then gives you a good taste of what it looks like. And then you have a bunch of other stuff that's, free, especially with your tie-ins. But yeah, no, it's a good deal for sure. I think that's one of the main things as well, is making sure that it's like a good price point, and then puzzles. Who doesn't want those? That
goes back to kind of what I was saying about keeping the scope like reasonable, right?
Right.
We don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but we also feel like we don't want to put in so much work that we want to charge more for it. And I'll be honest with you, it's partially a marketing decision too, because the DMs Guild has a specific banner, a ribbon, one of those ribbons on the front page that says hottest titles under $5.
Right.
Well, guess what? You got to be under $5 to make it. If you look at our first puzzles book, it's pretty much a mainstay in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Which, certainly helps.
I know I've definitely seen it there all the time.
It's there. It seems like it's there to stay. I don't want to jinx it or anything, but it's usually hovering right around the top 5. I've done the math, and I know what it takes. I'll share some of it. It's not a secret. But basically, on launch day, if you get somewhere between 12 and 15 sales on your first day, which seems like a lot, but if you've got kind of a built-in audience and you got enough friends, it's doable. We usually hit it. 12 to 15 sales on the first day will put you in the top 5 ribbon on that under 5 banner. And then it kind of snowballs. The longer you can stay on there, the more it snowballs.
Right. Because everybody sees it, everybody buys it. Everybody's face. Super easy. And it's under $5, which is a deal. So, yeah.
So you mentioned the American Ninja Warrior thing. That just sounds like such an awesome idea. Did you do like a little death run type, this Ninja Warrior thing? It just sounds super cool.
Yeah. So the way that my original idea was exactly that, to basically do like a death run type thing, or even an obstacle course. And it's funny because this goes back before I published anything on DMs Guild. I pitched it to a few third-party publishers. I didn't get any takers, so that's part of the reason it went on the back burner.
Yeah.
But then what we did when we finally sat down and wrote it, we kind of took what we learned from puzzles, and we built the obstacles as kind of plug and play encounters. And then there's a section that pieces them together. I think there's 3 different obstacle courses. One is kind of like the idea that, this is more like a competition thing. There's rules in there for actually racing people. We're based on there's 2 different things. I'm trying to remember what it is. I think one of them is basically by how much you pass the skill check. And the other one is how many rolls it takes for you to pass the skill check.
Gotcha.
It's been a while, so I can't remember exactly how it works, because we had a couple different ideas kicking around. And then the other one is more like you're and there's a little bit of lore around it, but basically you're trapped in a dungeon, and this evil mastermind is forcing you to go through this death trap one. So those are more like the deadly ones, like the swinging pendulums that are going to, cut your hands off, and the shooting arrows that are going to impale you. So it's like the encounters are there, like plug and play, and then there is like kind of the obstacle course with some mechanics for running it as a race if you want to.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that just screams some like Saw vibes, where like some evil dude is just like, you guys can get out if you want, but you got to do this. That'd be interesting to throw in there. But how is it making adventures and all that with like the full-time job, the family, the kids, all of that stuff? Have you ever had like an issue with that?
I mean, not really, because I don't go, like, I don't really burn myself out, right? I've got co-writers. The things I put out Come in 2-4 was like, one is really quick hitters, like the Amongst Out thing that I bang out like essentially by myself. Kai did art and she kind of read it through and was like, that's cool, but I did all the writing. So that's easy, right? I could just bang it out. Which I do in evenings or I shouldn't say this again, but slow day at work.
I think we've all been there though.
So I do a decent job, I guess, of managing my time where I don't usually feel stressed from it. I do have the luxury of it kind of being a side gig, right? I've got a day job. So this is just kind of like a side hobby that started as something fun that, oh, by the way, you make a little cash on the side when you do it. So
I mean, what, 10,000 sales at $4.95 for puzzles, predicaments, and perplexities, and of course you have co-writers, but like, yeah, that's a significant. I know
DM's Guild also takes half.
Yeah,
but no, you're right. It's a good chunk.
Still, I mean, like, what, 50,000, 25,000, then you split it amongst your co-writers. Like, yeah, that's a good chunk of change for sure.
It's not bad. Yeah, don't tell the IRS.
Yeah, until they try and come in there. Yeah, for sure. Well,
the IRS is listening. All right, fill out all my tax forms according to the law. Thank you.
Of course, we make sure that we go to H&R Block or TurboTax and everything's all squared away.
It's all on the up and up.
But I mean, okay, so I feel like I already know which one your favorite one is. But what, out of all of your work, which one was your most favorite to make?
So it's probably the Christmas one, and we do Dr. Seuss rhymes in it. There's literally like the story is told with Dr. Seuss rhymes, and coming up with those were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But there's really none that I ever felt like a chore. Like I wouldn't be doing this if it felt like a real job or if it felt like a chore. I enjoy pretty much all of them. Treasures of the Deep coming with wacky magic items were awesome. Obviously the puzzles, we love. I mean, three volumes is a lot. We're trying to figure out if we're tapped out yet or not. And then there's one. Let me mention this one's a little bit weird, but there's the lost lyrics of Reznor, which is
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so that was fun. It was a little silly, but basically it's like parodies, almost like Weird Al style songs with like D&D lyrics.
Gotcha.
So like instead of Wonderwall by Oasis, it's Fireball.
Perfect. That's amazing.
So we came up with about a dozen of those. That was me and Bill. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That one's not the most successful. We did get one review that was like, this is really weird.
You're like, yeah, exactly. That's the point.
But there's obviously an audience for it somewhere.
Yeah,
so
apparently,
for it. I think that one sold. I think that one's Silver Electrum, so it's not like it hasn't sold copies.
Yeah. Well, and then you have, I saw as well, you have 12 insults to throw in for your vicious mockery.
So that's what the reviewer said. They were like, well, I want more of this.
Right.
Well, I want more. Like this third part's useful. Like you use it in my game. The parody songs, not so much. And that like that came up from like us playing. I played a bard. Reznor is a bard I played.
Gotcha.
On a Friday night after a couple of drinks. I'm, just come up with these things on the fly. And so, let's put it in a book.
Yeah. No, that's one of the things that we're doing too, is that I run my homebrew game, and there was a specific quest line that we were doing, and I was like, why not make this into a book? Like, why not put a significant amount of detail into this so that I can just copy paste into a GM binder or whatever program to use? And yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So everything is content.
5-Star Dive Bar came out like that too. So that was from in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, I don't know if you guys have played that at all. But
a little bit, yeah.
You get to own a tavern pretty early on, right? So I was DMing that one, and I wanted to spice up what they did with the tavern. So I was like, come up with like events. Like, here's axe throwing night. Here's all you can eat, hot dog night. And they came up with crazy stuff. And I mean, we laughed so hard. I was just like, we got to put this in a book. Somebody else will get a kick out of this.
Yeah. And then there was like Taco Tuesday or something
Taco
like
Tuesday,
that.
Yeah. There's stuff like that in there. Yeah.
It was so good. So good. Yeah. Perfect. Well, is there anything that you're currently working on that you're kind of excited about?
So, yeah, I mean, there's kind of two things, right? So the first thing I kind of wanted to mention is there's this convention coming up, Dungeon Con. I don't know if you guys have seen that, right? So I think we're going to do some panels, dungeon-based panels during that, which I'm kind of excited about. I don't really have a whole lot of names that I say are 100% committed right now. So I don't want to say somebody and not have them show up, but I've got some hooks out there to try to reel in some familiar names to talk about puzzles and stuff. So I'm pretty excited about that. And apparently the technology they're going to use is like this cool thing where you get little avatars and walk around like virtual convention hall.
Interesting.
And like you walk up to booths and you see the camera and hear the person that's at the booth.
That's kind of cool.
It does.
Okay.
It sounds really cool. And that's like at the end of May. So I'm kind of excited about that. Not that I have to do a whole lot of work and other than, organize maybe these panels and show up. But that's on the horizon. And then we're working on a book. I'm trying to think how much to give away. I don't want to spoil it.
Of course.
But it's basically, let's see if I can say enough without spoiling it. So think of the most common things that they tell DMs not to do, and we're gonna tell them how to do it.
Nice. Right on.
And try that. See how that works.
I love it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Basically, don't tell me the rules.
Yeah.
I'll do this.
It's why I was browsing just like crafts and stuff. There's so many creators out there that do cool stuff, flask and leatherwork and all that stuff. And this was just like yesterday, and I saw it on Twitter, and I was like, oh, let me check this stuff out. It looks kind of cool. Browsing through the catalog, and sure enough, they've got like 6 different products with this phrase on it, and I'm like, they just keep perpetuating this. Don't do this thing, and I'm like, we're gonna try to do it. Let's see what happens.
Right on. Come up
with some guidance on how to do this.
Is that going to be on DM's Guild then?
Yeah, it'll be on DM's Guild. We're trying to get it out. I said we don't have a hard release date because it's not a tie-in to a hardcover, but I'd like to get it out by the convention, which is end of May. That gives us 2 months, which should be plenty of time. But like anything, we slack a little bit, and it's like,
and then life happens. You got stuff that come up, and yeah. No, I get you. All right. I was
planning on writing on Friday night, and instead of sitting on my porch and cracked a beer, and nothing got written.
Yep. I totally feel the same way sometimes. I mean, God, today I was going to be working on our next adventure that we're trying to get out, and I had my second shot of the vaccine yesterday.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Oh, I just slept all day, and I just I just started feeling better right before we started recording, so it was good timing but terrible timing at the same time. But anyways. Cool. Well, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you coming on here. It was very insightful with the wealth of knowledge that you have and all of the different things that you've released. It's very helpful. So thank you for coming.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man. You guys do a good job. I appreciate it. And like I said, if I run that amongst Slow again, I'll have to find a different group because my friends already did it. But if I run it again, I'm going to use some of your techniques because I think you did a better job than I did.
Well, I mean, and then that was actually, going back to that was one of the great things about it is that you can replay it so many times.
That's
true.
You
just set up whatever list of tasks you want to do. You just hand them out, and that's that. But anyways, we thank you so much for coming. Hopefully we've actually piqued the interest of all of our listeners. If you do want to check out Steve's D&D content, we're going to definitely have a link to both Amongst Thou specifically, and then the list of great content that Steve has, especially, of course, the puzzles, predicaments, and
perplexities.
Perplexities.
That one I won't forget. The ordeal one I sometimes forget. That one I won't forget.
But we'll have a link to each of those, and we'll also have a link to our real play video where we run through the Amongst Thou. And yeah, so go ahead and check that out on both YouTube, and we have it on VOD on our Twitch. But anyways, thank you all again for joining us for this interview, and make sure to level up, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.